Secrets to improving your team communication using DiSC. Here's how. What happens when your team's most talented members stop engaging? You've tried hosting team building exercises, you've sent endless motivational emails, but nothing's working.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have problems.
Could the real issue be how you're communicating? Research reveals that poor communication is the root cause of 86% of workplace failures. So, if you're struggling to communicate with your team, then this is a problem you cannot afford to ignore. Without understanding your team's unique communication preferences, you risk creating silos, misalignment, and growing frustration. And that's something we need to change right now. I've spent over a decade teaching leaders and managers how to communicate effectively using the DiSC personality framework. Time and time again, I've seen teams transform just by understanding one critical thing: how to adapt your communication style to each person's personal behavior.
Kevin, are you saying see the world or sea world?
Sea world.
That's why in this video, I will break down how to use the DiSC framework to improve communication with every personality type in your team, covering actionable tips for meetings, feedback, and collaboration. Starting with the dominant types. How do you communicate better? When you're communicating with dominant type, wherever that's written communication or verbal communication, you want to communicate in a direct, no bullshit manner. Cut out the fluff. You don't need to ask, how are you? You don't need to go into all the personal stuff. Dominant people want to get straight to the point. What do you want? What do you need? What do you expect? Clear communication, get straight to the point. They don't really mind if it's verbal or written. Dominant types typically focus on effectiveness and efficiency more than anything.
Hey Kevin, what are you doing?
Don't talk to me.
So whatever is your preferred communication style, you can utilize with a dominant individual. The key things with dominant people is that you want to give them ownership and responsibility. You don't want to put them in a position where they're constantly having to check in with you and so on. Obviously, having deadlines, having checkpoints is important, but your key thing with dominant types is you don't want to micromanage them. How to make them collaborate well within a team, again, giving them responsibility is often key. Dominant types are very good at getting things done by themselves, but helping them understand how a team collaborates and really helping them understand that they're responsible for the output of the group, not just an individual, is very, very helpful when collaborating with dominant people. They're very comfortable with responsibility, and therefore they're very comfortable taking charge. What about the influential types? Well, number one, they generally prefer verbal communication. They're verbal communicators, and they care a lot about you. They care a lot about who you are, your name, and they will use your name many times. And you should really learn how to use name in conversations with influential people. They love the sound of their name. When you're communicating with influential people, it's often a lot of energy. If you're being very sort of introvert and you're sitting talking in a very monotone manner, it makes it very difficult for them to connect. They are all about energy. They're all about putting their hands on your shoulder and, they're about connection. They're about energy. So when connecting with influential people, when trying to get the most out of them, talk to them in person or on the phone. I see a lot of people complaining, saying, hey, I have a team member, I've sent them these important emails, they don't read them. And reality is, influential people, it's not just that they can't read, they can. The problem is they often don't understand written communication in a good way. So if you have important things to communicate with them, you really want to try do it in person. Now, when you're communicating with them, you also want to talk about personal things. So even if you're in a very work professional scenario, you want to ask about them, who they are, how they are, because that personal collaboration, that personal connection is what makes them excited. It's what makes them tick. So when you're communicating with influential people, remember to care about them. Remember, it's all about verbal communication. How do you get the most out of them? Give them projects and assignments that help them collaborate with other people, communicate with other people. They often talk with everyone everywhere, so they know people everywhere. So any sort of networking, any sort of collaboration with other people is typically great for the I personality types. How do you get the most out of steady people? So the steady people is like the I's, very people-oriented people. However, they're generally good at both written and verbal communication. They are okay with both because their preference is typically whatever you prefer. Now, for steady people, you want to communicate personally. So again, you always want to ask them how they're doing. You always want to connect with them a little bit personally before going on to the work stuff. Why is this important? Because again, they want to build a bond. They want to build a relationship with you. When you're communicating, you ideally don't want to be too direct. Steady people often see very direct communication as a bit offensive, or sometimes they might even take things very personal if it's very direct. So when you're giving them feedback, when you're giving them a responsibility, you want to obviously be clear in your communication, but you want to try and expand a little bit, not be too direct and not be too aggressive when you communicate with them, because they will often misunderstand that. What are they great at? Again, team collaboration. Everyone likes steady people because they make no enemies. They're not super comfortable with confrontation, and because of that, they avoid it at all costs. So they normally have very few enemies because they don't get confrontational. Now, they're also very kind people, and because they're always kind to others, others often want to help them. So they often have big benefits in team projects because people really want to help them. People really want to help them succeed. Next up, we have the conscientious people. How do you approach them? If you've ever tried to get on the phone with a developer or an accountant, you've probably failed. If you have managed to get on the phone with them, you've probably realized that every second sentence is, "Can you send me that in an email?" Why? It's very simple. Conscientious people much prefer written communication. Why? They can refer back to it, they can make sure the details are accurate, and they have it to reference at a later point in time. At the same time, for conscientious people, more communication is better. They want to know everything. Now, they don't typically talk much about personal stuff. They're focused on the business, they're focused on the work stuff, but they want to know everything. They will typically ask a lot of questions. So the more information you can give them up front, if you're giving them a project or if you're giving them an assignment, giving them as much information as you can about the project up front is going to save you a lot of time, and it's going to help them get the project done faster and better. Conscientious people want to know and understand before they do. They're often seen as a little bit of slow starters, but the thing is, when they get it, when they understand, they're exceptionally consistent. And that's one of their core strengths. So conscientious people is typically what I call the 80 to 100. So you have people who like starting things, but the conscientious people is people that take things that are good and make them perfect. So they're very good at process optimization. They're very good at details and so on. Those are also the best projects to give them. So anything technical, anything detailed, anything with numbers and details and analysis, they're really, really good at. And one of the core things that I always teach conscientious people is learning how to add more value by sharing what you see. So a lot of conscientious people, when they see a spreadsheet full of numbers, it's a bit like the matrix. They don't need a graph. They just see the numbers and they get them. However, others often don't. So one of the most important learning points for conscientious people is learning how to share what they see. So don't just send a financial report to your boss. Send them the financial report and bullet point out what are the key things you would do, or what are the key things to notice that have changed. Because those are the things that makes a conscientious person more valuable. So, which personality type do you connect with the best, and who do you connect with the least? Please share in your comments below. If you're interested in scaling up your business with the best management tactics, processes, and mindsets, check out my online course, The Effective Management Mastery, where I teach leaders and managers how to get exceptionally good at their trade. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you like the video, and you can see more videos where I share more management tips on my channel. I'll see you in the next video.